For exercise 3-36-4, there are many ways to complete this exercise. The way that I'm going to show is the way that I would approach this particular exercise. Even though you may take a different approach, as long as we all come out with the same answer, everything is fine. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently, and I'm going to focus a lot more on the parametric aspects of the design as I go through here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go by starting from the front plane. Now, the thing of it is when I go back to sketch, I got to remember this is a 30 by 30 grid, so I'm going to come in here pretty small, and to start, I'm just going to draw a single line. And this line that I just drew is going to give me the reference for my size, and I'm going to change that to 3.5. Okay, now that I have a good feel for the scale that I'm working at by drawing that 3.5, now I'm going to begin to sketch the rest of this. I've got my line that comes up this way, slants in, goes up, comes over, down, and as I go over this way, what I can do on my way up here is I can check and make sure that if I see these two little L's on the screen next to the V, that lets me know that those are the same length. That's going to save me a little bit of time in placing that constraint there in a few minutes anyway. So there I can see those two L's, and here I can see those two L's, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish this particular piece off. Now, though I had some automatically created constraints, I do want to come in here and go to my equal constraint and select this line and this line, and then this line and this line. So now basically what I have is something that's going to be completely symmetrical from end to end without me actually having to go back and do a whole lot of dimensioning. The overall height that I want to work towards here is 3.5, and I'll explain that in a minute. The 3.5 is simply because that is going to be the height at the back of the object, at the very top. It's not necessarily the total height of the object, but adding those two little rounded ends is going to be much easier after everything else is accomplished. So now I want to continue some of my dimensioning. This segment right here is going to be 1.5. The segment here is also 1.25, not also, but okay, so now I've got a lot of things starting to iron out. The distance between these two is 0.75. And they themselves are 0.5. Okay, so now the only thing that I really have to do is figure in the depth of this particular section right here, which is also going to be 1.25. So there I have the majority of what I'm looking for. Next I want to go ahead and I want to build this cutout that's going to be here in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to my line command, and I'm just going to draw a line up, making sure that I don't have any constraints associated with that line. I'm going to draw it over, and I'm going to draw it down. Now the reason for this is so that when I draw my circle, I can just draw the circle on this line and I'll have everything available to trim away. Now this is supposed to be centered equally between the two. And since the circle is going to have a radius of 1, let me just go ahead and draw the circle in here on the midpoint out to the ends, and I'll dimension that. And it is going to have a diameter of 1. I'm sorry, that's a radius of 1, which is accurate. The height above the bottom is going to be 0.75. And from the center to the edge is going to be 3.5 divided by 2. So that gives me the location for everything that is going to be encompassed in here. I can now go to delete segment, and I can get rid of the parts and pieces of this sketch that I no longer need. Now, in getting rid of some of those, some of the dimensions that I originally created have gone away. So what I need to do is I need to go back and make sure that I have a dimension from here to here that is still accurate. Okay, so I still have that in there, so I don't need that one there. This 0.75, I want to go ahead and make that strong again. And now I've got the overall shape that I'm looking for. I've got everything that I want. I can go ahead and finish this sketch. And now I'm going to extrude this. But instead of extruding it singly in one direction, I'm going to change my option to go both directions. And I want it to go a total of 5. So I will click the checkbox, and I have that going wholly out at a distance of 5. Now the reason for that, as you'll very soon see, is I still have my front plane that I can work from. And this is vitally important because it's at this point that I want to go back to that and do a sketch. And now I need to take into consideration all that is going to be cut from this sketch. So I'm going to click on a button right here. It's called the Use. And I want to use this line, this line, this line, and this line. Those are the lines that I'm using because I want to cut that shape out of the middle of this object. Now I'm going to draw a line across here to complete that, and a line across here to complete that. Now what you should see is a solid loop that is directly in the middle of my object. I can finish my sketch and extrude that, going in both directions. If the whole thing is 5 and the thickness on each edge is 0.75, that means that the cut that I want to make is going to be 3.5. So I'm going to select Cut, Midplane, and 3.5. And I'm going to look at the preview just to make sure that it looks the way that I'm trying to get it to look, and that looks accurate, so I'll hit my checkbox. So now you can see that whole middle piece here has now been deleted. Next I can go in and I can do the same thing. Again, I'll go to the front plane and click on Sketch. And click on Sketch again. Now this time I'm going to click on the Use button, and I'm going to select my top 2 lines, and then I'm just going to go ahead and pick my 2 right lines. Now I do need a line to connect these two, since I'm just going to cut it out as a big rectangle rather than 2 smaller pieces, and I need another line that's going to go across here. At this point I've created some open loops, so I need to use Delete Segment to get rid of this and this. And the height of this is going to be 0.5. So when we look at that profile, it's right here in the middle. And the overall length of this is going to be 3. So I'll finish this sketch, go back to Extrude, set it to go both directions, 3, and to cut. Hit my checkbox, and evidently I did not select Cut, so I want to right click on here and go to Edit Definition and make sure that Cut is on so that it cuts away that material. Now the other thing that I need to do is I need to get that bump onto each of these pieces. And there's a couple ways I can do it. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this surface, if it'll allow me to select it, and click Sketch. So now I have a sketch on this surface, and I'm going to click Use. And I need to orbit this so that I can see the lines that I'm actually using. And I'm just going to pick all 4 of those edges. And I should be able to pick all 4 of these edges as well. And then close. Now, what I want to do is I want to cut these in half. So I'm going to draw a line from midpoint to midpoint, and another line from midpoint to midpoint. Now, it may not let me do all this at once, but if it doesn't, I'll go back and just remove one of these and then put it back in a minute. But now I have 2 little profiles that are closed loops, so I can finish this. Now I'm going to, instead of selecting the extrude, I'm going to pick revolve. And the axis of revolution that I want is this line right here. Now you can see that it's trying to revolve both sections, which is exactly what I want, and I only need it to go 180 degrees. So I'll hit my checkbox, and there you can see that I've added my rounded ends. Now I can click on the hole command, select this face, hit Control and select that axis, tell the hole that I want it to go through all with a diameter of 0.5. And hit my checkbox, and there is exercise 3-36-4, which looked like a much more difficult exercise than it actually is, simply because if you look at how you're going to do the whole thing at once, it's quite difficult, but if you break it down piece by piece, it's actually much easier.